Now there is the next session is going to be a panel discussion and an address. It's basically how to harness AI to break down data silos for holistic consumer insights. All right, are we ready, ladies and gentlemen? Yes? No? I think we're hungry, right? Are we? All right. All right, for this address and the panel discussion, may I please request Vivek Bhargava, co-founder of Consumr.ai, ProfitWheel, to please come on stage. Give him a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. And I think the presentation is going to start, and then I would be announcing the panelists. Over to you, Vivek.
Okay, good afternoon, friends. Pleasure to be here. So I'm going to talk about AI and consumer insights as an industry and might take a bird's eye view of what I feel is going to happen in the industry and what the opportunity is and what the threats are. So, Jeff Bezos famously said this one sentence. He said that there should be an empty chair of the customer or the consumer in the boardroom. And I think it's such a powerful statement because what happens is that a lot of decisions we take as marketeers, whether it's for product development, whether it's for advertising, whether it's for creative, content creation, influencer selection, everything that we do, what if we could have a consumer next to us, our customer next to us? So it becomes a sounding board to improve all consumer-facing decisions. The second thing what it does is if the marketing department, the product development department, the creative department, the C-suite, all of them actually knew who the customer was, and the North Star was the customer, and everybody was rowing in the same direction. The compounding effect of that is very, very powerful. So that is what I feel the consumer insights industry is headed in, where you can have real-time sounding board of consumer insights from a consumer proxy who's going to answer every single question you have, and you can take those decisions based on those answers the consumer proxy is giving you. We at Consumr.ai called it AI twins, but there could be any name given to it. So I'll tell you my take on this is that Google came in about 25, 30 years ago and completely transformed the advertising industry. So what Google did to advertising, I think AI is doing to research. So what happened was, if there were 100,000 advertisers in the world, that became 10 million today. Same with the 100,000 research companies or research companies who are doing research today is going to become 10 million tomorrow. So the same thing what Google did to advertising, AI is doing to research. And the reason for that is when Google came in, you could not target intent. Your pricing was not democratized. And basically what happened was that's the reason it was not very effective. What Google came in, it allowed you to target intent, democratize pricing by making it bid and auction based. And suddenly it allowed that 100,000 to become 10 million. Same thing is going to happen in research, because what is happening right now is research is slow, is expensive, there is a say-do gap, and because of that, very few large companies have a CMI department. But most companies are not able to afford research or do research. This is what is going to happen when AI takes over this industry and consumer insights become a sounding board for almost every single department. So because of that, what's going to happen is that research is going to explode. So today the research industry is about $80–100 billion. My belief is that it's going to become a $1 trillion industry. And the reason for that is very simple, that if you take Uber and taxi services, so what happened was California taxi services market was $50 million. And they said, oh, how much can Uber capture? Maybe 20% of it, 30% of it, 50% of it. But what happened was the taxi services market went from 50 million to 40 million. And Uber became 200 million. So basically 10 million was taken from taxi services, $190 million market was created from scratch, which was just created by Uber and captured by Uber. Same thing is going to happen in consumer insights and research industry. So the $100 billion industry may go to $90 billion. So the Kantar, the Ipsos, the Nielsen of the world may come down by 5–10%. But what's going to happen is a $900 billion new market is going to be created, And the new market, in a way, is going to be captured totally by the synthetic research industry. And that's where I think the opportunity is. So, the funny part is, a lot of CMOs that I know who used to do brand in good old days 20 years ago, when performance industry came in, Google came in, they say, you know what, let me give this to the digital guy. So they would actually, I still remember presentations where we used to do this presentation where out of 50, 80 slides, there should be one slide on digital. And वो CMO को सुसु तभी आता था जब digital slide आती थी. So basically, sorry to be crude, but that is the time when you would leave the room, and then basically the digital would one slide out of the 50 slides. But then what happened was that the person who was handling the performance, his budget became bigger than the CMO budget, and they ended up being CMOs. So the CMOs who adopted performance today are surviving in the industry and doing really well in the industry. But the CMOs who stuck to brand, they today are unfortunately looking for jobs. Same thing is going to happen in the consumer insights industry. The consumer insights industry, if it becomes 10x of what it is today and becomes a seat on the table in the C-suite, now start using consumer insights for every single decision they do, from acquisition of companies to the strategy of the company. And if this is going to happen, it's very important that if the CMI is going to become such a big person in the company, the CMOs adopt it today. Otherwise, what happened in the performance, same thing will happen to them tomorrow, that 10 years down the line, somebody speaking out here, that somebody saw the tidal wave coming, the tsunami coming, and did nothing about it. That's why my belief is that the ability to simulate consumer conversations, the ability to simulate consumer behavior, it is going to be a game changer for every single organization. And the faster the CMOs and the marketing insights departments come under the CMO, come under the C-suite, come under the CEO, the larger the opportunity is going to be. So what we do at Consumr.ai is very simple. What we believe is that Google tells us what people are thinking, Meta tells you what they are doing, Amazon what they're buying, Spotify what they're listening, YouTube what they're watching, blogs what they're saying, LinkedIn, TikTok, Snap. What if you can collect data from all these places and bring it to a single repository and convert the repository into a consumer twin, right? A consumer proxy. And this proxy becomes the sounding board for all your decisions. And this is not going to only impact the marketing department, this is going to impact every single department of the company. So if you talk about you want to acquire a company, you can actually do research on that company you want to acquire. You can create twins of competition of that company and see why they will switch from that competition to this company or leave this company for the competition, and based on that decide whether you want to acquire the company or not. And this is going to be a C-suite decision. So my belief is that if people have taken 3 routes of consumer insights, all 3 of them are going to grow. One is pure synthetic, that you create a persona using Claude or whatever, and that persona answers questions, right? So there is a company called Simile, they raised $100 million. They're going to do purely synthetic data, consumer simulation based on synthetic data. Second is you take your existing research and use AI to find insights. The challenge with that is that if you have bias built in, then it just amplifies the bias. The third is the approach that we've taken, that we believe that if we can study consumer behavior deterministically, not people what they're sharing on social media, but what they're actually doing on social media, if we collect that information is actually going to be very, very useful to build these consumer personas and then run simulations. These simulations will help you decide what the consumer is going to do, and these simulations can be predictive in nature about every single industry. Just imagine today a financial results, a quarterly result of a company comes out. As soon as it comes out, every single AI in the world is going to ingest it and can predict the stock price based on the financial results. But what happens is that if today an iPhone 18 is released and the number of searches for that is lesser than iPhone 17, or the number of people consuming that information is lesser in 3 countries, which is India is a big market, then all these signals that you're taking from 150 countries that we take, you could actually know the financial impact of this based on the simulations. So imagine that the alternative data set, so like how you have Bloomberg for financial data, I believe that there are going to be companies which will give you sort of a Bloomberg for consumer intelligence, for consumer behavior. And the consumer behavior, if you can predict, is like predicting rain, is predicting weather. There are so many factors, because if you take all these platforms put together, there are trillions of factors across 150 countries, across intent, behavior, and everything that we can think of. So I would like to leave everybody this thought that generally what happens is when human beings and AI are close neck to neck with each other, then generally what happens is humans compete with AI. So if you take in the initial days, you would compete with AI on chess, right? But then chess became really, really much better than us. Then you don't compete with AI on chess anymore. Similarly, in the early days, a machine could lift X. You could, as a human, lift 2X. But then now you don't have a competition with forklift anymore or a marathon run with a car. Same thing is going to happen in the research industry. Today, you are comparing with human-centric research. But the fact of the matter is that this is going to become 10x, 100x because human-centric research cannot compete. The people who are actually buying your products, people who buy luxury don't fill up research. People who fill up research probably can't afford luxury. So my belief is that it's an abundance industry. Everything we know about AI is the abundance industry. Most people in India have lived in a scarcity industry. Their mentality is how can they use AI to save cost. That worked in IT services is not going to work in AI. In AI, one has to think that how can one use AI to actually increase and make more monies rather than save money, right? So on this note, I would love to call my panelists on stage. I was exactly 10 minutes, so I made sure there's exactly 10 minutes.
Thank you for the address. Now may I please call upon stage the panelists. Abhishek Gandhi, co-founder and chief business officer, FatakPay. Please give him a big round of applause. Pooja Menon Vaidya, assistant vice president, digital marketing, SBI Mutual Fund. Give her a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. And Saurabh Gupta, founder and chief executive officer, Verismart.ai. Round of applause. Over to you, Vivek.
So awesome to set the context and just give my views, which are bird's eye views. But maybe starting with you, Pooja, I just want you to share with us your 2-minute take on the topic of how all these data silos is preventing us from using AI in an optimum manner to create consumer insights.
Thanks, Vivek. So I think in companies like ours, right, in SBI, we have so much of data that we are not really able to understand what is the data that will make sense for us to actually put into a system, what is the data that actually has some context which will give insight, because every touch point becomes, a data point, right? So there are millions of records, a person has opened an email, a person has clicked on something, a person has redeemed a mutual fund. All of this necessarily does not mean that it may be negative or positive, right? Because there's a life stage the customer is at, and basis that life stage, he's taking that action. So a lot of times, when people churn out or they redeem a mutual fund, for example, it is taken as a negative signal. But it is not necessarily a negative signal, right? Maybe they're buying a house, which is a much bigger goal, or maybe they, need it for a house or a car or a marriage. So understanding all of this with regards to the customer context of his life stage, of his goals, is something that we're still trying to figure out. And I think, that's where AI and, the research part comes in. So yeah, looking forward to the entire thing that you mentioned.
Yeah, actually, what you're saying is very interesting because, the biggest challenge is that most companies, including SBI, you can only understand your customer from a transaction lens, what they bought, what they sold. What they do outside of a relationship, what cuisine do they like? Do they like cats or dogs? Do they like wine or beer? Do they like action as a genre? Comedy as a genre? This information is not known to us. So if we knew this about our customer, then it could be very useful to know that what are the reasons people are doing what they're doing, because this is information that brands don't have access to.
True. And especially, when a lot of BFSI, right, we usually sell the product first. We are trying to say buy equity or buy this, buy that. But the person may be in a life stage where he may need a different product. And unless we don't have that customer insight of why they're actually needing that wealth, it is very difficult to then market accordingly. So yes.
Abhishek, would love to have your views on the topic.
Yeah, so I think as a fintech and a financial super app, I think it's a very important problem to be addressed. We have almost 4 crore plus users with us, more than 20 lakh active loan applicants, 35 lakh, insurances sold. So, and you have, your customer service systems, your risk systems, your marketing systems, your, sales systems working, in independent, data silos. So it's very important to marry these systems to ensure, there is ability to cross-sell and understand the customer persona across, the various interactions that he's having with the app. So I think it's increasingly important in the given context.
And how are you understanding them today? At this point in time, how are you understanding them?
Right. So currently we've ensured that we have an internal data lake created where all the data from all these systems, whether it be it a CDP system or a CRM system or risk systems, even customer service data flowing into one data lake, and then we use modeling to mine customer data real time and be able to provide coherent cross-sell opportunities.
I've always actually wondered that like what people do outside of your relationship, can there be one single metric that will be a game changer? So I'll give you an example in fintech. I've always wondered that people who are delinquent customers of a fintech brand, are there specific interests that they're consuming which tells you that there is a higher probability of them becoming delinquent? And if we can identify, because like I was thinking, like we work with this company called Dexcom in US. We found that interest called human nail was giving their type 1 diabetic customers at one single nail, because the first sign of juvenile or type 1 diabetes is yellow or jaundice nails. And the lifetime value of that customer is 200x of a normal CGM customer who uses a CGM product for 2 weeks or 4 weeks. So now that one single interest was worth tens of millions of dollars in lifetime value for the company. I was just wondering that can we find an interest that tells you that the probability of this person or this cohort becoming delinquent is higher?
Absolutely. I think if there is a indicator like that, we'd love to also explore that.
Holy grail. And,
yeah, exactly.
And we solved one problem, one client, we can solve 1 million clients after that. Okay, over to you, Saurabh. Would love to have your views.
So I think we do this for living. So what different organizations have been doing internally with their data of trying to understand the consumer behavior and the stage of the life and marrying and cross-selling other set of product itself. We democratize this thing at a framework level. So what we did is that we built a data intelligence framework. This framework allowed different organizations to talk about the same set of consumer, but without trading data, without exchanging data. And all of it operates on protocol layer. And these protocols are like, these are 15 odd protocols which establishes the quality of data, because everything is like a black box for the outside world. It's a wall garden. You cannot just go and check the quality of the data by yourself. So how we have done is that these respective organizations having different data lakes altogether, we created a in-premise a blockchain infrastructure where they are able to validate every single signal through a query mechanism. So any advertiser, any brand can come and query of what kind of intelligence they are looking for their right set of audience group, because every brand wants to be more hyper-personalized in their product offering, and thus they need to walk away or beyond the Meta and Google intelligence altogether. So that's where we bring that 4 lakh plus parameters searchable across all the gambit of first-party signals, and then marry it in such a way that it fulfills your 100% of that customer persona, and then you can serve it through any of the activation channel or MarTech channel itself. So just to put it in context, we are doing it at a DPI level of having it as a digital public infrastructure level. We cater to almost 618 million consumer intelligence in the gambit, take care of the protocols which talks about the consent, which talks about privacy, which talks about no data going outside, maintaining the sovereignty of the data itself. So those kind of things we automated at a framework level to serve it for the audience.
Very impressive, yeah. Awesome. We'd love to know more later. So coming back to you, Pooja, one of the things that we were talking about, this 360-degree view, right, of customers, and how do we create this one view of that customer, and especially from a regulatory framework point of view, what are the challenges you are facing in creating that?
So I think from a regulatory point of view, the issue is a little lesser. In BFSI usually they say this is bigger, but it's not, because I feel what happens is all departments have their primary source of platform that they use, right? So a marketing team may use a lead management system along with a CRM. A customer service team uses something else. And while there is still one view, a lot of people, because there is so much of data, inputted, a lot of, departments just look at their specific silos, right? So, I will look at, data which is pertaining to whether my, our campaigns are running, there are clicks, etc. The customer service team will look at a complaint, but I will, before I send a marketing promotion, I'm not actually checking if the customer has complained in the last 24 hours. So if the customer has complained about a product of mine, but I am still sending out communication because I'm looking at that as a metric, the person is anyway not going to convert, right? So I think the marrying of the data, even if you have one platform, is where the challenge is. Obviously, a lot of companies also do not have that, right? Like even I've been in companies where, marketing team is looking at a lead management system, sales is looking at CRM, etc. That is also an issue, but I think the issue is just about the focus of each department is different. So we are just looking at those main metrics instead of looking at it from a customer point of view, saying if the customer has an issue with this product of mine, does it make sense to stay silent, or does it make sense to send out a promotion, or should I do something to, retain the customer from leaving and going?
And how do you think AI is going to solve this challenge, and what is the process of somebody who wants to work with SBI, getting AI into the company is not going to be easy, right? So what has been the challenges you faced when evaluating solutions?
So the good part is SBI Mutual Fund, thankfully, is extremely technology heavy, right? So, from an ecosystem perspective, they are completely gung-ho on AI. I think the challenge will come because a lot of the offline teams, the branch teams, all of them, for them to adopt AI, for them to actually input details or use those details for something, because in the corporate office, it's still very easy to get AI set up. But actually at the end level, to get the sales team to put in those inputs. So for example, if a salesperson goes to a customer and the customer says, this is my problem, a lot of the sales team may not necessarily input that as a comment, right? Because they have multiple calls a day. So that data is not flowing in. So when I'm thinking of AI, I'm actually looking at whether we can have an ecosystem that, whether it is through voice, right? Because it's easier than actually typing in something. Through voice or through a recorded transcribe or something, put in the data and then figure out whether that data point is relevant to a marketing team, relevant to a customer team. And then make, and then figure out what's the next communication plan for that customer. Currently, we are doing, even if you're segmenting, they're still blankets, right? You will not be able to send personalized communication to crores of customers. I'm hoping that AI can do something basis the behavior, the conversations, the grievances that that particular customer has, create the communication accordingly and then send it out.
So Abhishek, for you, I think the segue is, right, what are the biggest missed opportunities? Because there is so much of fragmented data across channels.
So as a company, I think, there are three major issues you run into if you have these kind of data in silos. One is you may risk losing, high value moments of the customer or retention opportunity of this customer. So, because you were not able to tap into his immediate need, you're not able to cross-sell, and he may actually go outside the platform and purchase whatever he wants, outside of the platform. So one is absolutely, you will miss out on high-value cross-sell opportunities. The second is also, you might have very conflicting offers going to a person. So your risk team may flag a person as, highly risky and, may not want to give him an offer, but your sales team may still go out and give an offer if the data is fragmented. So you may have very fragmented or, conflicting offers going to the same person. As Pooja was mentioning earlier, somebody is complaining on the customer service and then you're still marketing to the customer for a product. So it's kind of a conflicted approach. He's not going to take the product, and you're also wasting your time, resources into it. So I think that's the other major challenge that will happen. And the highest cost, especially for fintechs like us, is not just the lost revenue, but it's also the loss of trust, because the customer may realize that as a service provider, you don't have an understanding of the behavioral understanding of that customer. So he may actually stop trusting you, which essentially is the major ingredient for a fintech. So I think those are the three major challenges that you can run into if you don't do this properly.
So Saurabh, for me, the question was like, any brand or advertisers, how can they ensure the quality of the first-party data that they have that in a way gets attached to their ad funnel? I think it's a challenge that people face in unpacking their first-party data.
So, a very legit question altogether, because everyone is sitting behind their own respective walled gardens. These are non-accessible form of data. Privacy is hanging by a thread on those cases. If they, if I have a great data lake and I would allow a brand or an advertiser to walk into my infra and just know about my data, then I'm just jeopardizing the entire situation. So so this is a problem which we envisaged a few years back. We realized that it's not just about data interoperability or data silos talking to each other. The bigger problem is how we establish that trust across those different set of data silos, that their data is the best quality form, have the respective recency, frequency, or the consumer intelligence, which really other brand or advertiser wants to query for. So we started working backwards of creating protocols. These protocols is the same way like how ONDC operates. ONDC work on 4 different protocols of establishing the entire process automation for e-commerce, where logistic will be picked up from somewhere else, the delivery will be, the product is being picked up from somewhere else, and the payment will be picked up from somewhere else, and then married through a one single funnel altogether. So that's the same set of analogy we followed into this data intelligence piece itself, that we validated at the source of truth and put a protocol check on together. We built protocols related to zero knowledge proof, multi-party claim management, and similarly more, so that we establishes that whatever the data source is claiming about their data intelligence is being proven at a framework altogether, and then making it queryable across the ecosystem itself. And thus how we eventually reach to our democratization stage itself.
Awesome, Saurabh. So we have a couple of minutes left. I would love to see if we can get some audience questions. Anybody would like to ask a question, please raise your hands. Looks like nobody understood anything, or everybody understood everything.
There's a lady in the back.
Sorry, is there a hand?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Just introduce yourself when you ask the question, please. Should
I? Hello, everyone. This is Shiv Prasad from NBSD. My question to the panel, first of all, thank you for your insightful session. My question is specifically related to data privacy with all DP thing coming up. And also, considering that a lot of organizations are feeding the new LLMs which are coming in. So how do, as a brand, one thing is getting an insight, but how do I ensure that my data is at least anonymized, and I share the context, but may not be the my actual first party data, right? And considering this at a scale, how do I ensure that the implications my brand doesn't suffer the implications at scale?
Okay, shall I answer this? Okay.
Sure.
So see, there are 2 pieces of it. When you're talking about a consumer or a cohort level intelligence, and when you're talking about the LLM piece itself. So when we talk about anything where you are using LLM, where you're trying to build your own small set of fine-tuning engine with a small language model altogether. See, anonymization of data and having a consent from the consumer is a non-negotiable kind of a thing itself. But how you protect your data stack of not talking to any set of open stack or a LLM itself, that is something where you need to build your own guardrails itself. You have to dissect your PII set of information, put it to a tokenization, and then making it rest of the data, which is a more alternative set of data, transactable and understandable to that LLM layer itself. So that part of the thing is something any set of data nurturing and massaging need to be done beforehand as a compliance first kind of an approach. Now talking about a consumer or cohorting level altogether, see, having a consent, because gone those days when we talk about an umbrella consent of using data for multiple purposes across multiple third-party partners altogether, then it calls for having a clear defined purpose as well as the, the time in, time out kind of a thing from the consumer perspective altogether. So there you need to build create consent management as a service layer altogether for your customer group. Define it for what all purposes you're going to use it, and thereafter you will be able to put to analytics and other set of handshake itself with different first party or a second party, or maybe for the fulfillment purpose itself.
Cool. Awesome. I think that unfortunately the time is up, and I know that we are between you and lunch. So at this point in time, I would like to thank the panelists. Please, can we give them a round of applause here?
Thank you for the insightful session. I will request all of you to please stand ahead of the table for the photo opportunity.